So before we start the stream today, thank you all for your kind words and support. I'd really appreciate mentioning of this channel on official stream a couple days ago that did boost our subscribers tenfold. So thank you guys. Thank you for your continuous effort to support and promote English version of that stream into the world. We do believe that information conveyed by mass media very often is skewed one way or another, so we're trying to look into the heart of the events as they unfold there. Thanks again. Stay with us. We'll bring you more interesting things in the future. Always yours, Privateer Station. Dear friends, glad to meet you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, August 3rd, 1 minute past 10 Kiev time, and we're doing our regular stream, day 161, with Olexiy Arestovych. Olexiy, glad to meet you. Yesterday we had day 160 and we didn't even pronounce the importance of the date. See where we are now. Alright, we can make these eyes today, and because it's a special day as I promised. Despite his 47th birthday, and it's birthday day for Olexiy Arestovych, he decided to spend it here with us, at least part of it, which deserves a certain recognition, I think. Although, as you get older, I think it stops being as important as it used to be. Frankly, personally, I don't really celebrate it too much. I can have a good drink any day. And I don't know, I do celebrate sometimes, but it kind of stops being yours. People will celebrate it for you. So how do you walk around the streets? I usually don't. My attempt to go get coffee often turns into a 2-hour photo session. What about your wife? Does she quarrel with you? Does she hit you for that? No, as an example, my kid asked me to go on Sunday to the zoo. We entered the zoo, and 4 hours later, the kid told me, "Dad, I'll go," because there was an amount of people that I couldn't really proceed further than the gate. And that's the answer to the question, why am I not visiting Kiev at the moment? Yeah, exactly. And if you're gone for more than several hours, you get a call that a special group will come over and take you and follow you and guide you to wherever you need to be. Well, anyway, congratulations. Despite the war and all these sad events, still congratulations. Anyway, there is 170,000 people watching us live. Over 40,000 left their likes. It is a special day. Despite of his birthday, Olexiy is busy doing a lot of streams with other channels. And today we had a stream pre-recorded with me, Olexiy, and Nevzorov. I was just an observer and the wine pourer at the birthday. They do have the same birthday, both of them, so those of you who are interested can watch Nevzorov's clip on his channel, and Olexiy also has a link to that. Side notice from Privateer Station, we'll see when we get time to translate that. We'll probably concentrate on Latininas first. That's a little more factual, but we'll get to Nevzorov probably. Anyway, let's get back to the front. What happened during that day? Let me say my favorite phrase that people often get upset about. Nothing major is happening. Main events likely will start about a week from now or during the next week. The events that seem to be serious, but if you look at the strategic size of a theater, those are smaller scale actions. Regardless, these smaller tactical actions, they do have their goals and results. So if we look at Kharkov, there are local fights there with continuous shelling of the city. Yesterday night there was a missile hit on Ukraine. 8 missiles, we shot down 7. Kudos to our anti-air defense. Siversk, they're trying to move towards Serebrenka, and there is no motion there. They're starting to dig in to get into defense positions. A bit to the south, to Krasnaya Gora from Vladimirovka, the enemy continues to push. They moved a little bit, about 100 meters per day maybe, but despite, they're still proceeding. Also, Golmovskaya Nietravnever, there is a push. It's difficult, but our guys are standing. I know these guys, talking to them, they're saying it's difficult, but we're continuing to hold positions and fight back. Also, a golden dream of enemy is to cut Bakhmut from the south and gain some land near Nikolaevka. I'll tell more. I'll kind of go over the whole front and then give the resume at the end. Same thing with Avdiivka. They're trying here at the 6 o'clock on the map. You can see they're trying to encircle it from the north towards Lastochkina, basically trying to cut the road and connection with the big land through Ocheratina. And then also there is a motion from Spartak towards Pisky. And Pisky is a sort of a sticking out part of our defense. One to get there needs to spend resource and time to get to it. And I already mentioned at Yulia Latinina's stream today, I would personally probably move our troops back a bit, but this is my self opinion in this case, because command has a better understanding of the front line and they know what they're doing. Because yesterday there was a situation when a soldier published a post that they've been shelled for 6 days, we can do nothing. Russian propagandists picked it up happily and posted all over, and in the evening we already sent the help, and by morning it was there and started bringing goods and gifts to the advancing enemy. So I need to remind for a viewer that the war from the standpoint of a standalone soldier may look very different depending on where he is, and very different from the strategic outcome. It's not because of the cynicism of people who are sitting in Kiev and make conclusions and deductions. It's to understand the depth of the situation. So this is basically an attempt to make us throw reserves at that area, to not throw them at the area where there is an offensive planned, and they want us to disperse our defense capabilities. And as we said, most of it is Takmak, Zaporozhye, and Kherson area. So that's where the real action will happen. And Kharkov and Donetsk and Lugansk, their task is to provide military pressure. So we still would keep part of our group there and try to distract us from our concentration on the south. And this is the strategic plan. Of course, for the soldier who's getting shelled with 150mm artillery, doesn't appreciate that situation. But on the higher level, you need to understand that this is the actions that the enemy wants. And regardless of the emotional charge of the post, they do not define the destiny and the flow of this war, and our command has enough troops on that front to stop them. So and basically summing it up, they created a local pressure. Our troops are maneuvering and taking better positions. This is not withdrawal, this is maneuvered defense. It may look very difficult from the standpoint of a soldier who is being hit, but again, the major front will be on the south that will define the destiny and the outcome of this campaign. But we are preparing down there as well. We also, part of that preparation is continuous attack of their logistics and their supply lines and select groups of occupants. Our partisans work in that direction, our special services, special forces work there, military intel works there. So I should remind that every time, as we say, every time as there are numbers of successful hits, there are people bearing the brunt of this war on the intel community, because they're the ones getting the target acquisition. They're finding those targets. Nothing major changed between us and the enemy. I think our streams will become real golden next week when there will be more active maneuvers from the enemy, and we'll be countering and performing our own plan. Although it cannot be excluded that the enemy might try to advance softly, probing and poking our defense and trying to find where they can push through. And their task indeed is really to draw in our most battle-capable units so that we would not have them available for the further offensive maneuver. And their general outcome is to stall the whole thing, that's their goal, and to force Ukraine to political agreement. They're not already talking about any capture of additional lands. There is rhetoric that they're talking about capture of the whole Ukraine somewhere during 50 years out, maybe. But right now, technically, they're incapable of capturing even regional centers. So their task is to stall and get a respite and prepare for the second round or next round. And their agents on the West are activating everything. They try to get the situation on Balkans heated and find any opportunity to force Ukraine into political solution, into political settlement with Putin's regime. And as I said, those proponents of stalling us will get HIMARS on their heads, and there will not be negotiations at this point. Schroeder mentioned that grain will probably or should probably become the negotiations ground, and I think we can understand that that's the position of Moscow, because he is essentially their puppet. I remember we talked about this strike on Odessa. Next day after the grain agreement, that was the revenge for them failing to achieve the goal of that grain agreement that was not included into it. Today's position voiced by Schroeder is actually the agreement they wanted to get, to sit down at the table and discuss peace talks on the ground of food crisis. So Moscow may be acting from the closer perspective. They understand probably that military supplies coming from allies, Ukraine willfulness to liberate Kherson, they probably see that they need to throw everything they have militarily and politically, throwing people like Schroeder and other talking heads to persuade Ukraine to sit down and start discussions at the table. What is Moscow afraid of? Are they afraid of Ukraine liberating Kherson, or is there something else that scares them? They probably, in that situation, it's difficult for them to prognosticate their political situation. What else are they afraid of? It is not important where do we attack, where do we advance, because they're afraid of any military success from our side. Because as you discussed with your guests, as I said many times, for them it's psychological break. of the whole campaign. That whole story is held on the illusion that they are advancing and going forward. That's why they're throwing so much info and propaganda at getting a couple hundred yards near Pisky, a great victory. And they do want to negotiate because they are afraid of Ukrainian success. They don't care where, because anywhere, what Nevzorov mentioned today, at any place where Ukraine will get success, where Russia itself is also a front politically in this war. We're trying not to look into Russia, but inside, that'll be a break for disapproval. Every military break will result in a disapproval rating. And he basically, Nevzorov mentioned today that on every war there is a breaking point. There is a breaking point when the moods change into anti-war. That's what they're afraid of, because when the loyalty to government disappears, all other economic problems, isolation, sanctions, moral issues, will issues, they will result in they have a potential to result in a big crisis. And they're probably gauging their situation in Russia internally, and they understand that they will not have enough resources to cope with that situation successfully. So you think they're really scared by the result of any Ukrainian situation on the front will cause a big issue at home. Yeah, any success of Ukraine in the front will result in a big problem at home in Russia. Even the analysis, look at the offer that Schroeder voiced. So let's analyze that. First, negotiations with a ceasefire. So first, stop. Second, Ukraine states that it doesn't want to be a member of NATO, so neutrality. Third, Ukraine needs to state officially they don't want to attack Crimea militarily. And fourth, we'll need to find solutions on the occupied territories on the Switzerland canton model. So Ukraine becomes a confederation, and all the regions, including the occupied, or how they're often called by Putin talking heads on the West, regions in question, regions in quarrel, contested regions. And they're trying to sell it as you always wanted to be a confederation or federation. Dear viewers, look at the character of this offer. In essence, it's Putin's capitulation. So first they're saying we cannot continue fighting. So you mean they cannot get to Kiev? Not even Kiev. They can't even reach any regional center. You need to make it concrete for people, because, some viewers don't get it. They like big markers on the map. We're not talking about Kiev. They cannot take Kramatorsk and Slaviansk, two regional centers. So one needs to understand that, in essence, appearance of such an offer, it means that the campaign failed. The goals of the campaign have failed. They are still capable to provide military pressure and maybe stall the process. But attention, as what we talked about for many months, and we were accused in excessive optimism, especially during the hard fighting in May, and cases like Pisky, they lasted for 2.5 months on every part of the front. I did say that at one point it will be done, it will end. Here it is, it's ending, it's coming to an end. This offer shows that they cannot achieve their political goals militarily. They signed in their incapacity. They can continue to press, they can continue to wear us out and try to push us to the negotiation table, but they're awfully afraid of any Ukrainian victory. So our task now is to destroy their counteroffensive, or offensive at the south, switch into counteroffensive ourselves, liberate Kherson, take back the southern lands, and see where it goes from there. But any single moral victory, like liberation of Kherson, we need that. And we're going to that goal unstoppably. 351,000 people watching us. Over 100,000 click the like button. As always, I ask you to share the links to the stream and your social media and groups. For those who watch us from Russia, we get a lot of messages from you. Thank you. We understand you cannot always speak freely, but at least share that stream through messengers and other encrypted media. And subscribe to the channels to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. If you're watching that in English, subscribe to the privateer station. You can follow the link and subscribe. Another little announcement I need to make, it's important, as a gift to our birthday guy, Mogilev court in Belarus recognized Olexiy Arestovych as an anti-Belarus regime terrorist, and all his social media are essentially the terrorist activities are considered to be on the territory of Belarus. So that's a good sign. Belarus Führer doesn't like you. Also, as a result of, we did mention yesterday about Shari, about the reissuance of the criminal research on Shari, that pedophile who is hiding in Spain. Moscow publics, as a result, started screaming that Feygin now has citizenship of Ukraine. And since there was that panic in Moscow trying to defame and say that's my action to pay back for Ukrainian citizenship, I need to answer and say, no, I am not a Ukrainian citizen. I have never asked for that, and I'm still not a citizen of Ukraine. I'm not going to live in Ukraine and not going to get Ukrainian citizenship. And first of all, because in my example, I'm trying to show my compatriots from Russia that we should not be coming over to Ukraine trying to get citizenship. Maybe in some exclusive cases like Nevzorov it might work, but don't do it en masse. Okay, let's go further. Next question. President Zelensky made a statement. He touched upon Donbass, and it was made in a very dramatic tone that the east of Ukraine has not seen that for a long time. The war is horrible. This is hell. He used that word hell. And he called upon the citizens who are in the area of fighting to leave the immediate areas where there is war action, military action happening. Do not stay in the towns where battlefront has moved to. Is it a stage? Is it a certain stage? Many people note that that dramatism in his speech wasn't present there before. Does he know something? Is he going to imply something? August is a special month. I cannot say much here, really. I think it's just the respect to our soldiers who are fighting, dying, getting wounded in very difficult conditions. And we're all paying them back our recognition and respect and admiration, because if not for Ukrainian infantry, the front would not be there where it is now. Because they're handling all these attacks by Russians, especially in close combat fighting. It's horrible and difficult. And President is the most informed person, so he has the broadest knowledge of what's happening in the country. And now let's zoom out a little. What's happening in Pisky and Bakhmut, the hottest spots right now, that lasted for 2.5 months from Izum to Popasnaya, every day on all that length of the front. So the situation for us is much, much lighter for us than 2.5 months ago. when we did not have HIMARS, we didn't have Western artillery, we didn't have anything. Officers were begging to get ammo, and so that at least would shoot something. And they would have maybe 100 shells per day for a detachment against 4,000 or 5,000 shells from Russia. And that situation lasted from early April to early July, 2.5 months. Now HIMARS really weeded that out. The scale of Russian shelling has changed. In order for Russians to cause harm to us and our allies, as they call them, as forces of allies, FA in English, they need to bring more shells from different directions. They need to bring stuff from other locations. They need to concentrate before they can provide any attack force. And President gave note that, I understand that. I'm aware of this. We are taking measures, and I'm taking care of the soldiers and officers. We are trying to alleviate the burden. As for the citizens who live there, I did speak with Irina Vereshchuk, who is in charge of evacuation and all the humanitarian stuff. So they are aiding in removal and dislocation local citizens, because Russian artillery does not discriminate. They just shell and attack everything that they can reach. And we could not do that in Mariupol because it was encircled and the Russian side prevented us from doing it, but even then we moved some citizens out. And here we have a better access to our citizens, so we're providing that help and trying to get them out. And we're telling them that Russians will be hitting them if they can reach them. So same as Kharkiv. They'll never take Kharkiv, but they're shooting it just to make it hurt for the citizens of the city. And they keep attacking everything they can. Remember, some of our victims that we sent money to, some of our grantees, they suffered because of that indiscriminate Russian shelling. And that's why we're just turning to people, please leave the active hot spots. We can rebuild the cities later. We cannot bring your lives back. We're not afraid to lose the cities, that's unreal, but the problem is that Russians are hitting everything, so everybody's life is in danger. So look, the subject of Yelenovka had a continuation. United Nations promised to initiate the investigation. It seems like Gutierrez had woken up, he made a statement, and Moscow had made several statements that Ukrainian soldiers are torturing Russian prisoners of war. They even came up with some fake numbers and people who were refused medical help and so on. So it was their response to United Nations, yeah, you're just as bad. So when we calculated the narratives where propaganda will work, we guesstimated right. One of the main attacks from Moscow is to throw the same amount of blame onto the Ukrainian side. Their favorite and easiest tool of propaganda, and actually the very easy one to make work, is to accuse your enemy of what you're doing yourself. They're torturing our prisoners, they're not giving them water, they're making them to record videos. And that especially relates to any female prisoners of war. And yeah, that's in relation to one detachment. They captured the whole group there. And technically, doctors are not even considered to be combatants. They're always exchanged. Russia didn't. Russia doesn't. And they're trying to blame Ukraine for exactly what they're doing. So, and now they've killed 50 plus prisoners of war, and now they're pushing media propaganda to try to get maximum of media effect from that event. These guys, Another matter that was in the world news for a couple of days in Nagorno Karabakh, Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, everything became alive again. And now both sides are making statements. Azerbaijan troops apparently are making some moves and capturing some corridors. We would need to bring the Olexiy corridor. We need to bring the map of that next time. But it appears that Azerbaijan is finishing this operation, pushing out the remnants of forces that were supposed to be on the divided territory to be controlled by Russian peacekeepers. Apparently, there are no peacekeepers already. They're all in Ukraine. The Russian peacekeepers. And the operation comes to a conclusion that they started back in 2020 on Karabakh region. For Azerbaijan, the way they see it. Do you think that Turkey and Azerbaijan, with the capital in Baku, decided to use the situation and taking their own in that region? Because Russia is engaged otherwise, and very knowingly Russia cannot do anything at the moment. And all these international agreements, as I said, it's always paper. Nobody really followed them in terms of Karabakh. There was some respect for military presence, but now the weakening of Moscow creates ripples in the water on different war theaters. For example, Azerbaijan decided to solve some of their long-burning conflicts. How do you think Ukrainian war affected that? It's pretty straightforward, actually. 144 days they had in conflict in Karabakh. Azerbaijan wanted to clear that area that used to be theirs. Part of it was still controlled by Armenia, and Russia prevented Azerbaijan to capture the certain corridor. And now that Moscow kind of made a pause there in the conflict with their peacekeepers, so the moment they weakened, Azerbaijan acted. And Moscow is probably trying to do the same thing, stall the war here in Ukraine. Armenia, what they did there, they went through their process of figuring things out, and then they went to conclude direct agreements with Turkey and Azerbaijan to the sea, to have access to the sea. And there is also railroad communication that may happen, of course, gas transportation, natural gas, and there are a lot of plans to possibly there to make money on gas and natural resources. And there were messages sent by Azerbaijan troops to Armenia. They were placing military around that narrow corridor that Armenia had established earlier to the sea. So Armenia walked through a difficult situation, and they appealed to Russia. They had a couple of internal turmoils based on that, and finally figured out that they're the only ones to rely on are themselves in keeping that corridor. And Azerbaijan was making a point that the peace agreement they went for basically on their goodwill was always broken, especially with presence of Russian peacekeepers who did not give much respect to any Azerbaijans in the area. And there were a lot of provocations and violations. It was just a matter of time when military actions would start. Now that the peacekeepers are withdrawn, and there was that 15th Brigade from Samara, from Russia, who probably died twice over in Ukraine. We had the first prisoners of war from that brigade here. By the way, okay, I cannot speak about that yet, I'll talk later. Right now I don't know the degree of readiness of Azerbaijan troops and political leadership to final conclusion of that problem or resolution of that problem. But in these small conflicts, even capture of small parts, even road intersections and small villages, it can change a lot. just like before the beginning of war when they took a strategic height, Armenian observing point, and they failed. Armenia lost a way to see into the movement of Azerbaijan troops. So they'll try to push maximum out of that situation. I think they will not completely resolve that situation right now. It's probably a tactic of slow leaps and crawls. And as people who know how to use situations, I think Azerbaijan and Turks prove that they're pretty savvy at using political and military combination of force. There are more questions, I think, to Armenia as a country, because if to look at it, zoom out from a certain perspective, the way how Kremlin threw them under the bus, they need to address it. Yeah, I think it's their responsibility too. Their Prime Minister Pashinyan, who used to be a leader of Armenian Revolution or something, who said that our revolution does not have a geopolitical dimension, that this is not pro-West revolution, this is just fighting with corruption. Well, dear guys, you fought with corruption, but as a result, you lost part of your national sovereignty thinking that Moscow can be a worthy partner. Moscow does not care about your personal aspirations, and it likely will continue until you figure it out and sit down at the table as a separate entity, maybe with different allies. I personally think Armenian leaders had a better chance of achieving the situation talking to Azerbaijan and Turkey directly. Because, yeah, one way or another, they lost more involving Moscow into that conflict. Right now, they can lose more if they continue with that same politics. Because if the situation continues and Russia will completely disappear from that region, or may stay in a different format, you never know. They can also bite a piece of Armenia as well. We talked about this war a long time ago, before the war in Ukraine, on our streams, and Moscow does like this conflict. Moscow needs the conflict over there. That gives them an opportunity to be a guarantor, an observer. That's the usual situation with Moscow. They always create a conflict and then come in there as a peacekeeper. Transnistria, Ukraine, Georgia, Ossetia. Each country is following their own interests, and Azerbaijan is defending their interests as they see fit. We are live for about 37 minutes. Almost 500,000 watching us. A lot of people left like. How is your day tomorrow? Everything's good, yeah. We do have a stream tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, 10 p.m. Kiev time, so please come. Don't miss it. We should not keep him for too long because his wife and kids are waiting for him. We congratulate him on the birthday and we will keep it short today. Hello to my wife. At the ending, I need to mention that we do have a merchandise program still running. We had almost 300,000 hryvnias in Ukrainian currency. That gives us 3 to 4 possible grants that we can give to the victims of this war. So not as much in America and Europe yet, but please continue making purchases. We're trying to add more goods to our stores. And we also are thinking about adding hats and caps, baseball caps. Baseball caps, yeah. Sorry, forgot the name, what the name of that hat is. So please make new purchases. Every penny spent goes to the victims of this war. And also give us hints, who do you think needs to be supported? Again, we don't have enough time to check everything. We track some major stories, but if you know of other issues, please send it over. Especially if there are kids involved. Can you imagine, right? The cost of prosthetics. Government, of course, helps, but then you need to travel there to help kids. So the amount we give, it basically just helps a little bit at the beginning with the resolution of post-conflict trauma. It doesn't really resolve everything, but it helps initially to settle certain matters. And yeah, I wish we could help everybody, but then it would be useless. It'll be like, $10 per person. So yeah, we're giving a little bit of a stipend to help people to move to a place where they'll be getting a prosthetics, will be getting a treatment, to come there, to settle, to resolve basic first couple things. So if you have ideas, if you know of stories that deserve our attention, please send them over. Olexiy, thank you again very much. Again, big congratulations to you. Hug your kids and wife, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. See you.